Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, August 6th. We started a little late. I've got a challenge a friend quest, so immediately I need somebody to come online on the European account and send me a friend request if they haven't friended me before, or just log on and send me a challenge. Otherwise, what do I need? 2 victories with any kind, 3 victories with Druid or Rogue, so that all lines up pretty well. I want to come over and just make sure any new cards have been marked as not new on all these accounts. Let's see, this is a European account, so this shouldn't be in my account. I get rid of gold on European and the main account to have dust for HS replay, which I think I'm gonna have so much dust. HS replay is totally going to help me build better decks next time as the next expansion happens. Druid or Rogue? Let's stick with probably a hand Druid deck. Yes, might as well play ranked. And there we go. I don't think I have an incredibly large amount of news, but I do need to burn through it. Like, forever I'm in this position where if I just get too talky about news articles or cover the games too slowly, that even a small amount of news of games coming out is too much, and I should filter games a little bit better. For instance, I'm looking at this game called Slime Gear. It looks like MS Paint level graphics. There's nothing here that would convince me to pay its full price of $4.99, which is what they want right now. There's no discount. It's kind of ridiculous that any game would come out on Steam without a initial sale, since that is exactly what all your competition is doing. Even if your game is the best game ever, if Borderlands 3 or Half-Life 3 came out with no sale initially, I think you still run the risk of it being selling less.
My greeting.
Like, inherently, that's why things come out priced higher than they should be in the first place. They're usually at least 20% over marked up over what you really want them to sell as, just so you can have a 10% sale or 20% off for the first few weeks. Let's see, moving on, PC Gamer has an article. Samsung is building new high-capacity SSDs to flood the market with 1 terabyte drives. The upcoming drives will range from capacity from 1 terabyte to 4 terabytes. I don't know if it's for end users, but there are definitely going to be some reasons in which you would want a 4 terabyte SSD for small businesses and such. I think inherently though, if you're trying to, well, even if you're trying to do a raid with a bunch of 4 terabyte SSDs, that might help speed things up, depending on how many actual disk writes you're getting, and how many of those disk writes and disk reads are based on actual services needing the disk to read or write to the disk, and how much of that is just bad programming. I saw a programming comment that just by programming something wrong, they reduced the amount of latency by like 512%, just because it was programmed very badly. And I saw another programming thing with an Arduino where the speed of just flipping a light on and off was incredibly slow just based on how you programmed it. If you use the basic simple programming code, it was way slower because there was included pre-written functions in that basic code that were taking a lot of extra processing power. However, I do also want to point out this is just more argument to PC gamers is having trouble writing any video game articles these days, because this isn't like a real announcement. Nobody else in the hardware tech industry is going to be talking about this. I think Samsung announced this probably weeks ago, and it's just really an announcement of we're working to make bigger SSDs. Yeah, no duh. Of course, you should be. You should always be working to make bigger SSDs. My SSD is like 512 gigabytes. If I had a 1 terabyte SSD, I'd probably be set. It would let me have 10 to 20 games always installed on the SSD. It would let me record a couple more days of footage without running the risk of filling up the hard drive. I have been in incidences where I was in the middle of recording a very visually intense game and it was taking up so much space that I filled up the hard drive and lost some footage. But that doesn't happen all the time. It also doesn't work very well with OBS. OBS should just stop the recording because it corrupts the entire recording. But it also has to do with, I suppose, the format of video I'm recording. Alright, I'm hesitant to talk about this game. There's a game on this on Steam called Banzo-Marks of Slavery. It says Banzo-Marks of Slavery is a turn-based strategy and resource management game. Command the vultures Quilombo at Brazil Imperial Age and be responsible for organizing, producing food, protecting the Quilombo, attacking farms, and releasing enslaved people. Okay. So it's inherently probably a political game with probably some revisionist history in it, but it's hard to not be on the side of freeing slaves anywhere. This game just doesn't look like it's good enough to try to tackle this story. But it doesn't look terrible either. A lot of it looks like text. A lot of it looks like some craziness. This doesn't look like it's amazingly offensive either. And we've seen in the past some games that try to use slavery as just a offensive looking thing.
Is someone injured?
I tried to play a game that was made by an African company that was really good looking and cool, but it was just so slow that I couldn't make it past a couple hours in it. And there was something Legend of the Cory Dam. Oh no, this one's in English and Portuguese Brazil. It says it's E from everyone. Let's see what all the achievements say, because that might give me an indication of how seriously they really are taking this. See, in the end, I think there's a weirdness here where you're going to free slaves, but then you're also going to get workers as a resource management game to run your farm. So in what ways are you not, as the character, just enslaving people yourself, or at least taking advantage of very disenfranchised people? I know in Africa there's certainly a lot of tribal warfare and using let's see, it says this game won the Pra Cultura public contest and was funded by the Brazilian Ministry of Culture. So it's a Brazilian propaganda piece, sort of. I mean, when the government funds something, there's some amount of propaganda already in it. Usually speaking, maybe they were totally hands off with it, but I doubt it. So we need to draw cards. Draw and draw.
Job's done.
Need to gain armor.
Time waits for no one.
Actually, that was what I was supposed to be doing. I guess I'm gonna put Bonzo on my wish list. We'll see what other user reviews have to say about it. Right now there are none in my language. This looks like this might be a very educational game, but getting your history or education from a video game is probably something an idiot would do. Not helpful, but I'll keep an eye on it. Moving on, PC Gamer has a article, get a GTX 1080 for just $430 at Amazon. The prices keep falling. This, I believe, is an EVGA card, and I don't know if EVGA does good quality or bad quality. I have all gigabyte hardware, so I kind of have some loyalty there. Maybe that's ridiculous and I shouldn't, but right now I do. Let's see. Let's see, deal 4 damage to a minion. So this is like the third PC Gamer article not talking about video games. They really have nothing to say. Let's see. Gamasutra has an article. SNK artist discusses discrimination in the Japanese game industry. Gender discrimination in the workplace has been notorious throughout the history of game development. Citation needed, please. And it was no different back in the 90s Japan, especially for early SNK artist Hiroko Yokoyama. Thanks to a translation provided by Necrosoft Games Brandon Sheffield. So you've got an article here that's been translated that I know Gamasutra did not have anybody look at that translation. Just to start off with, like we know for a fact they didn't, because they don't really have anybody that works for them. It seems. All right. Let's see, gain more cards.
Beetleberries, my favorite, my favorite.
Let's do this.
Job's done.
And in the turn. Let's see. Let's continue here though. Yokoyama describes how the unnamed company she worked with in the 90s wanted to train 2 artists in the rising tech of 3D polygons, but any woman applicants were instantly dismissed. She volunteered to learn the tech herself after the 2 trained workers had left the company, but being married, her boss declined on the basis that married women don't work properly after giving birth. He also apparently dismissed her work on the grounds that she was fat, ugly otaku, and wrote off his comments as it's just a joke excuse. Certainly, there's also some, these are coming from tweets. Certainly this is true. I don't think any female who works in Japan would disagree that there isn't some major biases against women in the work environment. There's also some major biases against lots of other people in Japan. I think culturally, Japan is definitely struggling with an older age population that won't accept anybody who is not themselves. That is, if you look at like Nintendo, who is the most prominent female employee of Nintendo of Japan? There is nobody. Who is the most prominent female employee of Nintendo of America? I can't name anybody. So yeah, that's certainly a case. But then again, how many prominent Nintendo employees do you know in general? There is a bigger issue of just workers don't matter. But it really, also you could rephrase this as she worked for one jerk boss who is like a lot of jerk bosses, and I think in fairness, all around the world there are jerk bosses who think and feel the exact same thing. Stereotyping from anybody is not going to get you very far. I can stereotype all employers and say they're all like this jerk boss. I can stereotype all women and say that once they're married they don't work as well. And there certainly are examples that will feed into any stereotype always. Well, inherently the story, what I take from this is an incident from the 90s, and
It's harvest time.
it's not giving us anything actionable now that we're in 2018. Like, for all we know, that jerk boss has died, has moved on, has retired. Is there anything to say there? If she was saying this happened last week, then she could try to make some outcry against it, and people could get behind her. But you can't really do anything like that. If this were actionable crimes, if this was something where he assaulted her, then hopefully the statute of limitations in Japan wouldn't have been over. Here at the end of this article it says Yokoyama says she's no longer working in the industry but is aware that gender discrimination remains active and expresses hope that the situation improves in the future. Like, well, how are you aware that the situation remains active? Like, tell that story. That would have been a better story to tell. And frankly, from a United States position, I can't affect Japanese people. I can't affect Japanese laws. Japan, the Japanese people need to pass their own laws and their own social pressure against bad actions. So this really is a useless article to me. It really is. It's just to push a narrative that there's sexism in the video game industry that is incredibly rampant and incredibly higher than any other industry. And the solution, I think, that people who push this agenda is that, I don't know, women should be given free rides and hired even if they're not qualified. Women should be given promotions, or the entire video game industry should be run by women and only women. Like, I would much prefer meritocracy. And yeah, that's all I can really leave it on. I don't want to get into a rant on it. I'd just like to see people with merit and skill be in charge of making video games, so video games are good, so I don't have to play bad video games. Man, boy do I hate Rock Paper Shotgun's new site. Moving on, Rock Paper Shotgun has an article, return of some well-worn dungeons in the Bard's Tale trilogy next week. So the Bard's Trilogy remaster, it's the what launches August 14th. I'm not sure. The Bard's Trilogy is a remaster of the first 3 Bard's Tale games. I'm not sure if the graphics are gonna still be worth playing. It's a tiny little dungeon crawler in the top left of the screen, and then the vast majority of the screen is just scrolls where you see text and stats at the bottom of the bottom third of the screen. So it's just little animated GIFs, and that's kind of it in the top left. It's barely a visual game at all. It's basically like a text-based game. And I know the Bard's Tale has historical significance, and for that reason I might spotlight a game like the Bard's Tale trilogy. Yeah, it's called the Bard's Tale trilogy, and so I'll put it on my wish list. But in all honesty, if anybody really wanted me to cover this game from the beginning to end, I don't think I could stick with that. Like, that's just too much of a time commitment looking at ugly things. I'm pretty visual. Bard's Tale 4 is coming out, which, okay, so at that level there's going to be a let's see.
I'm waiting for no
this. Maybe Bard's Tale 4 is a little bit more graphical and more interesting to play. And I imagine if it is more graphical and more worth playing, let me see if I can actually find Bard's Tale 4 on Steam. I imagine at that point you could jump into it. No, they don't have a listing on Steam. And the developer that made this also made the Tide games, Star Wars The Clone Wars Republic Heroes, which is negatively reviewed, and Blade Kitten, which, okay. Blade Kitten, I believe, is one of the really bad games that I have the cover. Let's see.
My will is not my own.
Do this. And then don't play this. Moving on, Gamasutra has a blog, a handy art assets guide for social media presence. It's a blog by this person. It's talking about building up your social media presence. I imagine as a game developer,
It's time for a little blood.
The guide is a list and a pack of source files available on GitHub. Let's see. So what it's telling you is what type of picture formats are accepted by Steam Store page, which I imagine this information is available elsewhere, but you might grab it if you were a publisher from one central location. It's telling you that Steam accepts PNG and JPEGs, and the header capsule image is like 460 by 215 pixel. Smaller capsule image is 231 by 87 pixels. And it just keeps going on and on. A minimum of 5 screenshots are needed. And a page on the background is optional. The Steam Community Hub accepts mostly JPEGs. The Steam Developer Pages accepts JPEGs. Twitter accepts PNG and JPEGs. And you can make a header profile on the profile folder and an image website card, which I don't know what that is. Facebook accepts JPEGs, GIFs, and PNGs. YouTube accepts JPEG, GIFs, BMPs, and PNGs. Has a let's see, the channel icon is 800 by 800 pixels, but also there's a channel icon that's 98 by 98 pixels. And then there's channel art and channel art safe area for text and logos. Let's see. I should have played this first.
Time waits for no one.
And then Reddit, then Discord, then LinkedIn, then Instagram, then Pinterest, then Presskit, then Google AdWords ads. So actually this is probably a good just location to say, here's the resolutions and that you need to work in for your artist. Even if you're not a video game developer, if you're just trying to have any kind of social media presence. For example here, I don't have a Steam store or a community hub. I don't think I have a community hub, but I certainly have Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I have a Discord. I haven't done anything special with that. I technically have an Instagram. I don't think I have a Pinterest. So a considerable amount of these source files are actually useful just to a YouTube streamer. And I would fully admit that the reason why my channel has not succeeded as well as it probably could have is based on just a lack of having artistic ability. If I was capable of producing more thumbnails, or any thumbnails that caught people's eye, or just producing thumbnails period, I would probably get 4 to 5 times as many views just on the face of it. Alright.
The sun has set for me.
We've got a game on Steam called Not Without You. It's an early access game. It looks to me like a cell phone port. It's called Not Without You, and apparently you're controlling a cat that is, or you're controlling multiple cats. And both cats have to jump on the red dots at the same time. Or all the cats have to jump on the red dots at the same time. Or they have to be in a chain. The graphics don't look very good though. So It's $1.99. It might be a decent little puzzle cell phone game, but it certainly doesn't look interesting enough to justify being played on Steam or being on Steam. Let's see, what are we trying to do again? Get victories. We could come over. Oh, and I need to be adding friends too. Let's see if we can send some friend requests and get some random people on there. Let's just give it a second and then we'll play a rogue game. Tempo Rogue. Next game we have on Steam is called Kingdoms of Marazia, M-A-R-A-Z-I-A. Says it's a massively multiplayer RPG. It looks like it's a hex-based type game. It's only online multiplayer, so I'd never play it. It's 30% off for $13.99. The graphics do not look good enough for the $13. This is a 60 cents game at most, and trying to make it multiplayer seems totally insane. It's the first game from this developer also. Like, you really need to make a single player version of your game as your first release and then say, hey, we're gonna make a multiplayer version, or we're gonna add multiplayer, or we're gonna make that DLC or something. You can't, as your first game, say, this is going to be multiplayer and we're going to get that to work perfectly and we're going to have an audience and it'll make sense. I don't think it's a super fair comparison, but Activision Blizzard, like, first games they released were single player. Like, Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 happened before World of Warcraft, I believe. Maybe at least 1 or 2 did. Diablo 1, 2 happened and they didn't really have multiplayer. Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm much later in Activision Blizzard's history. Next game we have on Steam is called Alter Army, A-L-T-E-R space Army, A-R-M-Y.
I don't need any of you.
Here we go.
Let's see, Alter Army is a hardcore fast-paced action platformer with punchy combat overflowing with game feels. Seriously, people need to speak proper English in their descriptions and not try to be cool with like the kids. Explore a dying civilization and find out what happened and why you're here collecting crystals. Okay. So, looking at the video, it does seem like it is a fast-paced run, dash, punching up, beat 'em up platformer game. Graphics aren't amazingly good, but you're moving so fast and there's so much on the screen, it's not a huge issue. I imagine in a lot of ways that in the same ways that Dead Cells would just get annoying after a while for all the button mashing you're doing. I kind of wonder if this would be the similar experience.
Job's done.
But I can't immediately dismiss this either. Yes, the graphics don't look great. Yes, it does kind of look like if you took Super Meat Boy speed and mixed it with beat 'em up fighting. It's the first game from this developer. It's 10% off for $4.49, and I don't think I'd be giving it a fair shake if I didn't put it on my wish list and keep an eye on it. The one recommendation, it says combat is bad, also game freezes a lot, decent game though, in dire need of a lot of polish. I editorialized what they said there and removed the cussing.
Here we go.
So yeah, I'll keep an eye on Alter Army, but I can't really recommend it. So we had a game, I believe a Hinta Sokoban game came out just a couple days ago, and now we've got another one called Hinta Sokoban, so I don't know what the other one was really called. This is basically, Sokoban, as best as I can tell, is a box sliding puzzle game. And they've just put some very small amounts of possibly stolen art assets in it. No, the other game from this developer is called Hinta Puzzle. How much do they want for this garbage? That's, let's see, is it even in Japanese? It says it's in every language. It's 40% off for 59 cents. You know what you're doing if you're buying this game, and you shouldn't buy this game. Regardless, you're not supporting the real video game industry that would give you a quality product. You're just supporting people that are being ridiculous. And what is this really? It has 100 Steam achievements, and the achievements are all letters. Which, yeah, it's just an achievement hunter game. Which, frankly, if somebody says achievement hunter in the reviews and the comments and the description anywhere on that game, it needs to be flagged and looked at as far as a Steam system. Like, achievement hunter games should not be allowed. They just shouldn't. They're ruining Steam and changing what makes a game and a good game in a very bad way.
I fight.
Engaging TC
Here we go.
into this location.
I don't have enough.
Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. It says, watch the Narcosis devs explain how they sold their unusual game, Narcosis. This is probably an article written by the Narcosis devs. These Gamasutra things. I guess maybe, if it weren't for the fact that they are giving me some random weird articles that are slightly different, I could see abandoning Gamasutra's articles in general, just because they quite often are just self-promotion ads. It's just not a good website for news. It's more a website for self-promotion.
Not a valid target.
I don't know if it's supposed to be something along the lines of a NeoGAF replacement, but that would be Reset Error.
To Northred! Victory or death!
Let's see. Kill that one. That. Do that. The one thing here is, I guess I do kind of want to see this game Narcosis and just see what it is. See if it's on Steam. So let's search that. That's really what that just boils down to. Is somebody's talking about a game. Narcosis is on Steam. It's 80% positive of 305 user reviews. It came out March 28th, 2017. Says it's an adventure indie horror atmosphere mystery game, and it seems like it's a slightly underwater experience. Yeah. So instead of reading the Gamasutra article, none of the translation here in the text is saying anything important.
The light protects me.
Let's see.
To Northred!
That's 4 damage.
Victory or death!
Yeah, I'll just wishlist Narcosis and keep an eye on that. Moving on, another Gamma Sutra article. GDC 2019 organizers are looking for smart business and marketing talks. I think GDC might be the same company that owns Gamma Sutra, but either way. So GDC is going to happen. They're looking to cover specific topics, and I guess this would be slightly interesting as far as what topics do they want discussed. Key platforms of today and tomorrow. Platform analysis and case studies including real data, development and marketing budget planning for new platforms, marketing and user acquisitions, financing, company values, streaming, esports. So those are some pretty generic things. It doesn't seem like, at least in the description of what they're looking for people to talk about, that there's any real bias there. Except for maybe a slight bias towards streaming and esports being a big thing. If there was a talk specifically looking for games as services, that would be a indicator to me that there's kind of an agenda there, but mostly this seems pretty obvious stuff.
The pleasure is mine.
Alright, Gematsu, the other video game website that I follow that starts with G, has an article. Storm Boy, the game, has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PC, and smartphones. It's an adaptation of a 1964 children's book. It's going to come out in late 2018. And when you have a game that is going to be on so many different platforms, you know immediately that the graphics won't probably look that good. Now the trailer shows a very hand-painted, hand-animated style where the characters are not really moving, they're just sliding across the background. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a full 3D render of the characters in a low polygon 3D render at the beginning in the actual gameplay. It's from a company called Blowfish Studios.
Watch your back. I always do.
I imagine this isn't gonna be much of a game. It's probably gonna fall closer to an interactive story, and we haven't seen that in the video game industry much yet, where interactive stories, like a Dr. Seuss type story for little kids, start selling themselves as games. Like that hasn't happened, and I think the mainstream video game players would kind of bristle at that suggestion too. If we're gonna say just because a story happens and you can click on a picture and it makes the character make a sound, while there's interactive media, I think games have to focus on interaction as its main topic, with story potentially being a close second to that. But even things like Telltale games are starting to get closer to an interactive story than a video game than they probably should. We're gonna certainly, as a society, have to decide what we consider a video game and what we don't, and we're constantly having to reevaluate those decisions. No, I could have probably done this instead. I'm supposed to be friending people, by the way.
Halt! Who goes there?
We've got a game on Steam called Future Jam. Live out your DJ fantasies in Future Jam, a VR music rhythm game set in the cyberpunk future of 2049. I don't know, I see a lot of flashing neon shapes and lights. This could be a good game, it could be that it's just being depicted very oddly. We haven't been seeing a lot of VR games lately. It seems like as soon as we stopped seeing VR games, we started seeing sex games instead. I don't know why there would be any kind of connection there.
Here we go.
But that definitely does seem like the way it's been going.
The light protects me.
Future Jam is $9.99 because it's VR. I'll probably never play it. I really can't even make a good review of it just from the visuals of it. It's too hard to tell. I don't know if you're standing in front of some kind of futuristic visualizer to play music, or it seems like maybe that's what you're doing. Or maybe you're... No, it seems like what you're doing is you're playing drums on like a music track, and there's a lot of drums, more than a drum set drums. So it seems like it would be harder than even a professional drummer might have to do. 6 drums in a circle, or 6 buttons you're pressing, basically.
Your magic shall not save you.
I fight. Here we go.
Moving on, PC Gamer has an article. Good review scores count as much as a game that sells millions, says Capcom. We prefer a game that got a 9 and sold less than a 6 and sold more. Interesting theory for Capcom to say. It certainly doesn't seem like they've been following that, so this must be a new stance. Because Capcom games in the past have been rather total garbage. There's been a lot of spin-off Resident Evil games that were not good and not getting good reviews. Here in the article it says, and while if we compare RE7 versus RE6, the absolute numbers are not the same in terms of profitability. It's completely fine. It's also ticked all of our boxes internally. It was really well received. Well, good. So Resident Evil 8 theoretically, hopefully, will be good. And all the bad parts and all the bad DLC for Resident Evil 7 were just holdover experiments, and we won't see things like that at the beginning of at the end of RE8. Let's see. GameIndustry.biz, I guess, or is it just GI.biz is what that says. Seems like they shortened the website's name inappropriately in this article by PC Gamer. It says, reports that RE7 was considered a vast improvement over its main series forerunner. The latter, Resident Evil 6, accrued 7.1 million sales against the current one having 5.1 million sales. Yeah, and I don't think, though, anybody is of such a delusional nature that they think Resident Evil 6, if it had been released, if a game like Resident Evil 6 is released as Resident Evil 8, that would actually succeed and work. There we go. Challenge a friend. I swear if this guy turns me down, I'm gonna defriend him immediately since I just friended him. There we go. There's another quote here. We are less focused on day one sales these days too. We're looking more to the long term. And in the case RE7 is performing amazingly. Even now, after almost 2 years, it is still the VR flagship title. That helps keep the game selling well. Yeah. And I'm certainly one of the people that haven't played RE7 or bought it yet. So, yeah, that's another game. While I would love to play Darksiders 3, I'd also love to play Resident Evil 7. There's probably a good amount of people that are just waiting to see when that game goes on sale and has a like full all DLC version merged together.
Is someone injured?
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Retroids. R-E-T-R-O-I-D-S. That sounds like an unfortunate name to me. It's a indie casual action game. This game 3 armor.
Job done.
It seems like what you do is you fly around arcade style and shoot asteroids in the 3D environment and collect power-ups. So it's like the old game Asteroids, but it's been actually improved and looks better. Which, that's not a bad idea. It's just inherently, I feel like arcade style games are of an old genre, and people just don't want to play score chasing arcade style games, and this is just gonna get boring flying around shooting asteroids and nothing else. I see no enemies, I see just different colored asteroids, which makes it definitely feel like this is a game that was done on a budget as far as effort. Let's see. Take that. Yeah, there's really doesn't feel like there's any variety for Retroids. It's $4.99 in early access. The beginning of a good idea, certainly the beginning of a good idea for a game, but you gotta do more with it than that. You have to have some enemies attack at some time. You have to have really different types of asteroids or types of things you're shooting. Something more needs to happen. Let's see. There we go. Next we have a Your Gamer article. 14 years later, Football Manager cover star Manager Man has retired. Update: Manager Man is deciding what his next career move will be. So Manager Man, I guess, is the picture of an actor, a real life actor that was on the title of the Football Manager series. It's just a guy in a suit, so I'm surprised they couldn't just replace him with another guy in a suit. Although, you know what, just stick with it. I guess there is no Madden equivalent for the Football Manager, football meaning soccer in this instance.
Beetleberries, my favorite.
Let's play this. And let's see. I can upgrade this to doing more damage. Kill that.
Time waits for no one. All the
Let's keep
while.
on playing. Not really a story that matters to me, as I'm not big into soccer, and I probably would never play Football Manager, but I imagine the soccer fans are big into it. Next we have a game on Steam called Galactus, Galactis, and it's a vertical shooter bullet hell game. Not particularly widescreen. You kind of can't have a widescreen game when you're making a vertical shooter. Graphics look old style, but maybe with a small bit of polish on them. It's just certainly not anything that interests me. It looks like this game might have some different mechanics, but the menus are pretty badly drawn. It's 99 cents. I don't think you'd get completely ripped off playing Galactus, but also you'd have to be a big fan of shooter games. Tons of them come out. Most of them are bad. Let's see. Gain armor. And give your minions +1 attack. And deal 6 damage. And just attack everything.
Try one.
Gematsu has an article, My Hero One's Justice. My Hero One's Justice for 1 EX Plus Ultra has some screenshots. So this is a new screenshots for a game that's coming out from Bandai Namco for the My Hero Academia, My Hero series. I don't know if it's My Hero Academia or not. Let's see. Moving on. Gematsu has an article, the Bravely series Twitter account teases a new title. The official Twitter account of the Bravely series, which is a JRPG series, if I recall correctly. Let's see. They're probably boasted by the Octopath Traveler is the speculation in this article, that as a series has been selling extremely well, and because of that there's more interest or renewed interest in selling JRPGs. They tweeted out like a picture. The last Bravely series game was Bravely Second End Layer for the 3DS, which launched in 2015, so if you're taking 4 or 5 years to make a game, this would be right about the time to announce something anyways. I would have to double check to see how many Bravely series games are actually on PC, if any. Let's see, Eurogamer has a review of WarioWare Gold, and they've put this symbol, Eurogamer recommended, which I've never seen before. Eurogamer.
Where shall I strike?
Does that really say 52? I think that really says 52. That is crazy. I'm gonna have to get a silence or a steal from this guy. He's got 52 health. Since I'm never gonna play any Nintendo games, WarioWare or otherwise, I don't think it matters to me whether WarioWare is good or not. I didn't see a story, and this is one of those stories that won't get reported on too much, as some WarioWare game had been modded, or maybe you can just make your own mini WarioWare games in WarioWare Gold or some other WarioWare game, And so somebody spent what I assume is way too much time making sex mini games in WarioWare for like, who knows what reason. But that was out there. I saw the footage. Somebody did that. Alright. So if I play this and grab this, that would be crazy. Crazy, crazy good. So let's get rid of this first to lower our odds. Got the wrong thing. Let's see. We can play this. This guy is at 100 health. PC Gamer has an article, post-launch updates for We Happy Few detailed, including DLC. There's a free sandbox mode coming. Also, let's see. There's gonna be 3 DLC things. Roger and James, and They Came From Below, Lightbearer, Hearthrob, and We All Fall Down. As well as the season pass, We Happy Few will receive free updates adding a sandbox mode. It should be launching on August 10th. It's kind of nice. I feel like, again, Gearbox is doing a pretty bad job of advertising their own thing that they're publishing. That I'm getting this from other sources. Okay, I really can't do anything. The more I hear getting added to We Happy Few, the closer I get back to wanting to actually play that game. But the truth is, until I hear some real reviews on the story that I can trust, I'm not sure that there's anything that could ever be said about We Happy Few that will get me away from the fear that it's just going to have too much survival mechanics in it. Right.
My will is not my own.
Still haven't figured out which cards give me excess mana and which cards don't. Long list of cards. Gamma Sutra has a blog. What men and women consider hardcore gaming are not the same. I would argue that what two people in general consider hardcore gaming, when you get down to list it, is probably not going to be the same. Let's see. Oh, I'm seeing some charts. Let's see. And of course, my joke here that I would say is, what is hardcore gaming? Hardcore gaming is when you show the genitals uncensored, just like it's same definition of hardcore porn. Of course, that's not true. That's just, that would be my silly response to that, because it really is just a stupid question. It's just gatekeeping. That's all it is. 6 armor and 6 armor.
Wow.
And then in return, let's see. According to this image, hardcore gaming is, i.e., you have high-end equipment and play seriously or competitively. Where core, mid-core gaming, you play regular video games and are not super serious or competitive. So, I guess I'm not a hardcore gamer by that description. Let's see, it says casual gamers, you dabble in games, but in short sessions or infrequently.
Medicine insects.
Like, the whole thing, it really is just gatekeeping. what is the difference? Like, whatever the average audience is, whatever people want in their gaming experience, you want to address the desires of the largest amount of people you can. Like, I don't know if I ever really thought of myself as a hardcore gamer. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I think a lot of people probably would call me a hardcore gamer. I game professionally. This is my job. So I'm a professional gamer. But maybe I'm not a hardcore gamer. I'm not an obsessive gamer who only plays like Overwatch or only plays Call of Duty. I'm certainly not one of them. One of those people. I'm not a gamer bro who only plays games that the quote-unquote bros would play. On the other hand, I guess I'm not a extreme liberal person who only plays games like Butterfly Soup that are liberal in agenda, like an Anita Sarkeesian style gamer. Let's see. Hardcore gamers are looking for fast-paced, skill-based challenges. Not particularly me, so I guess I'm not a hardcore gamer. You know, I recently had this thought that people called me a nerd and geek back in the days when being a nerd and a geek was not fashionable. It was basically an insult. And I kind of let people call me that, and I kind of took that upon myself. But honestly,
Thank you.
as a human being with many varied interests and thoughts and an actual personality, and not just, oh, so that was his strategy. That took him a long time to get to that point. Like, I'm not a nerd. I'm not a geek. That's not what I am. I'm a human being who has all kinds of varied interests and desires. So, yeah, I guess I'm also not a hardcore gamer. I don't think I would let people call me a mid-core gamer either. I'll take gamer. I do play games, but I think really somebody doing a whole speech about this, and that's the weird thing, is this is a blog written by somebody who's either in the industry, wants to be in the industry, or something. Let's see. Let's see who wrote this article, because it's honestly not what you would even want to break it down if you're trying to sell to certain audiences. Quantic Foundry. This is by Nick Yee, expert blogger featured post. Nick Yee is the co-founder and analytics lead of Quantic Foundry, a game analytics consulting practice. So he's got a vested interest in this, and he's not even doing a good job, I think. Because I don't think you ask people, are you a hardcore gamer or not? What you ask people is, how many hours a day do you think you play a game? And how many hours a game do you think you play any game? How old are you? Are you male or female? These are the types of things that you would use to then have a database of analytics to say, this is your target market, this is who you want to advertise to. So we don't have the case of people trying to sell something like The Binding of Isaac, which is a grotesque, basically anti-Christian in its themes a little bit game. You don't want that to being sold to hugely conservative Christian people that don't play games and are 65 years old. Like, you just don't want to waste your money on that advertisement or cause controversy on that. However, there's no casual gamer badge or hardcore gamer badge. It's just not a category that needs to exist. Honestly, I would probably classify myself as a hardcore gamer because I play a lot of games and I play them to the end, and I don't give up usually. I don't rage quit very often. So I would say that's pretty hardcore. Whereas I would say an average gamer probably 50% of the time gets bored with the single player of most stories and doesn't finish them. We know that a large amount of people don't finish the single player stories. I'd say a casual gamer plays a game for about a month and then moves on, and they're perfectly happy with that. And that's an average gamer. And I'd say a casual gamer is somebody who barely plays an hour of one game a day on their phone, usually. That they have not invested anything whatsoever in a separate console to play any games, whether it's a PC or an actual console. These are how I would classify those groups. But again, why? Why bother to? Anyways, it's been an hour, so it's time to break up again. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, I'm asking people to friend me on Steam and gift me a game or a gift card. Or send me a Steam code through Twitter direct message. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.